Hello, everybody. Welcome on back to Fantasy Football Futures. On today's episode, we are going to dive on into the NFC North, kind of going over rosters, any moves that happened over this offseason, anything like that, and kind of projecting who we think might be some pickups or some big wide receiver pickups this offseason. So that's always going to be something to keep a lookout in the draft and some big trades that happen. So, before we go on, Tim, any exciting news around the league? I haven't really read up on anything in the past week or anything. Was there anything that caught your eye?
No, not really. Week? I know, read some today about the Panthers are really trying. I think the Panthers front office wants to get Baker. I don't think their head coach does. So it's kind of like he's trying to save his job because Panthers haven't been good. I don't think Baker's going to save it. I don't think so, but the front office is done with Sam Darnold for sure. Other than that, haven't seen a whole lot in the past few days.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Pretty quiet right now with training camps and everything getting ready to come up, and I don't know. I just don't think, like you said, Baker might not be the answer. I think he'll be better than Sam Darnold, but what they've seen in the past, I don't know. He's pretty much doing anything because of what he had last year was not the answer. So it'll be interesting to see there. But going into the biggest news from this offseason, kind of two things that happened with this team. With the Green Bay Packers, we look at Aaron Rodgers coming off MVP seasons back-to-back, came back and is now signed a new contract to stay with the Packers after all the drama he put on last year. But with that came the losing of his number one threat, Davante Adams. So Rodgers stays in Green Bay, but Davante gets shipped over to Las Vegas, where he's ended up getting an extension with them. But yeah, Rodgers now kind of has nobody to throw the ball to if you look at after his team last year to what he has
Yeah, I think
now.
From what I've heard, there's mixed reports, but I'm pretty sure Aaron did know that there's a good chance Davante Adams is not going to stay.
Yeah.
But I think
he said he didn't.
But then also I thought for a minute he said he did, so it's up in the air. It's stupid. But yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting because the number one on the depth chart is Allen Lazard for the Packers right now. And that's someone that was not there close to number one. He was hit and miss like in fantasy, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see what they do, how they're going to use Aaron Jones, how they're going to use A.J. Dillon. And I think that's where the Packers are going to have to rely on, and that defense is going to have to be better if they want to shot the playoffs again and hopefully make a deeper run.
Well, that's what they did sign Lazard, but that wasn't until last week. So even then, I know their GM went and got Sammy Watkins, which was, Sammy Watkins never lived up to the hype that he had coming out of college, and now you're looking at a guy who's kind of been washed up. He got injured last year, just really hasn't found form, but they're trying to say that he's going to get a bigger role here with the Packers, which, if you look at this roster with wide receivers they have, minus the rookies they just drafted, it's Randall Cobb, Sammy Watkins, Al Lazard. They lost, what was his name? I had it and I lost it.
Was it St. Brown or one of the...
No, he ran the deep routes all the time and would drop the ball. I'll figure it out. It'll come to me. But yeah, so they lost one of their number 3 guy last year.
And then you look at Illinois, the wide receiver that went to Illinois, wasn't him either?
No. I don't think so. I'll come back to his name. I'll figure it out eventually. But yeah, so him, this team, I don't know. You're just looking at this team, I just don't see anything. They pass on all these guys in the first round at wide receiver. Don't make any move like everybody else did in the league. So looking at their roster going forward, you have Christian Watson. What do you think it's going to look like for Aaron Rodgers going forward, having no Davante Adams, Christian Watson being the projected probably number one for them, Allen Lazard coming back, Sammy Watkins, and then they did pick up another rookie in Romeo, I think it's Dubes. in the 4th round, and then the late 7th one, Danny Davis and Randall Cobb coming back. What do you think that wide receiver room is going to look like, shape out to be?
So I think what's going to have to happen is Christian Watson's going to have to kind of grow up pretty fast. I know there's a lot of raw talent there, big guy, 6'5", going to be able to get down the field, someone that Aaron Rodgers can throw to. But he might not be their number one to start off. Hopefully he can mature very quick. He is 23 years old. It's not you're drafting like a junior. He's been there. He's been at North Dakota State. He kind of knows what it takes. He's been on a lot of winning teams. So I think I like Christian Watson, but have to be with Aaron Rodgers and the expectations that he brings is going to be kind of a sink or swim situation for Christian.
Yeah, and then he still hasn't signed his rookie contract, which still isn't a big deal, but that's something to keep an eye out for. I just think coming out of North Dakota State, he is 6'5", 200 pounds, which, big body, big build for a guy coming out of a D1 AA school. It's going to be hard to fill what Devontae Adams did. There's going to be no wide receiver on this team that can do that. And I just remembered, it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling that is the other receiver they lost.
Yep.
Yeah, went to the Chiefs. So, to me, it's just like if you're going to take a chance on any wide receiver in this room, I think it's going to be Christian Watson because I think Aaron Rodgers knows he's a high enough draft pick. He's young enough. He's got a big body. He's got to be somebody that he can rely on. And, he showed – we always thought Allen Lazard would take over that number 2 role with Devontae Adams being so dominant, getting so much attention. It just never happened. So I'll kind of be interested to see. I think, out of all rookies, a lot of people kind of projecting him to kind of be up there at the top because of what Rodgers can do throwing the football.
Yeah, for Christian Watson, what round are you willing to take him? Kind of just at the top of your head without doing much research.
So for me, looking at him, I think it's got to be like a Justin Jefferson kind of type-esque first year in the league. I know Justin Jefferson had much more potential and hierarchy, but I think you're looking like I remember Justin Jefferson going 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, depending on what your league was doing. But for me, it's if you think someone's going to take him in round 9, you can reach for him a little bit in round 8 because we've seen in the past if Roger has a favorite weapon, that's who he's going to throw to, and that's how it's going to work. It's just we have to see how are they going to develop together over the short time that they have.
Yeah, and in sleeper, Watson's kind of going around the 11th round. And I like the comparison to Justin Jefferson. Watson has a better quarterback he's going with, better than Kirk Cousins. It's going to be interesting to see if Watson can put up those big numbers. If he doesn't, I'm not going to be off of him. I really do like Watson for the future, especially if Rodgers will stay for a few years. And so that chemistry that they build, I think that's Rodgers loves big targets, and if they can get on a good connection, it's going to be great. Also, it's going to be interesting to see Tunyon's going to be back this year. He lost him in, I think, earlier in the year, so then they didn't really have a tight end to go to. So with Robert Tonyan, Aaron Rodgers likes him, especially in the red zone. So it's going to be interesting to see because 2 years ago he had 11 touchdowns.
I was saying 2 years ago he was dominant, but last year, if you looked at his numbers, they weren't great. People were projecting him to be the next big thing. But now, you just can't rely on a tight end to score a touchdown. 11 touchdowns, that's crazy. But like you said, I think this is another year where this guy was reliable 2 years ago. Rodgers probably should have used him a little more last year, but didn't. Now I think Robert Tonyan, it's his year to come back from torn ACL. It'll be interesting to see, when he does come back, what's that going to look like with Rodgers?
Yeah, I think it just really adds to it. You got Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon back there. They have a year together now. And just adding that another weapon in that red zone with Tonyan, if everyone can stay healthy. Tonyan on one side, you got 6'5" Christian Watson on the left side. And then you've seen flash of Sammy Watkins being able to kind of get in those spots. Same thing with Lazard. But I think it's going to be between A.J. Dillon, Christian Watson, and Tonyan where you're going to see a lot of the touchdowns in that red zone.
So, in the red zone. That's what, even Devontae Adams, it was pretty much quick one-out route. 1 yard fades, 1 yard slants, just hitting him up and down the field. And then you kind of hit on here is Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon kind of became a big debate last year. Everybody kind of thought that it would come, but after they signed Aaron Jones to this huge deal, got him for a couple years, came out last year, and, I mean, the numbers, running back-wise, it looks fine in 15 games, but those were solely carried on a couple games where he put up huge numbers and huge points. But there's a bunch of weeks, week in and week out, where Aaron Jones just wasn't what you were used to seeing with him. And I think that a lot of that is because he wasn't getting the running aspect that we're used to him getting. Now, he's still the main receiving back. It's just how much this year do you think A.J. Dillon's going to play a role in taking away runs from Aaron Jones?
I think it's just going to take another step. I think it's going to be more like small situations or even first, second down A.J. Dillon. I think Aaron Jones, if you're in PPR, I think Aaron Jones might be a little bit of a better opportunity than A.J. Dillon. But if you're strictly playing standard league, I think I go over A.J. Dillon. I think he just becomes more of a he'll be more on the field, especially and Aaron Jones has gotten hurt too. He's always getting hurt, and then A.J. Dillon really just comes out and he just kind of takes over sometimes. He's a big dude, so anytime they're inside the 20, he's on the field. They went 8-8 in touchdowns, or 10-9. I mean, if you count receiving, I think that's going to go up even more. I think A.J. Dillon's going to have more touchdowns than Aaron Jones this year.
That's what I was kind of thinking the same thing. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be more where it's a lean 50-50 split, and it's going to be like we're seeing all running backs now. We touched on it last week. It's a running back by committee in the NFL anymore. Like, you're not going to have your LaDainian Tomlinsons who just do everything you want, and that's all they're going to do. You don't have that anymore. That type of NFL is gone. We've moved on to the spread where wide receiver is more valuable. Good quarterback clearly has been more valuable. We're not running the ball now. And that's just because they can only last 4 years with all the battery they take. So I'm really thinking, like, it's going to be more 50-50, and I don't know if I like, Sleeper right now has him projected going around the third round, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon way around the 6th, 7th round. I just don't know if I take Aaron Jones that early. I think I wait. I sit and wait. And if you take one, I think you have to go back and snag the other just because you don't know. Like, I think it's going to be a game by game. It's just kind of, you got to hope that the week you play him, that's the week he goes off.
Yeah, and especially if one of them gets hurt too, the other one's stock price just goes through the roof.
Oh,
like they're not going to be using the other running backs on their depth chart. So I think, I like if you get one. The only thing is, like, if you get Aaron Jones, you're probably going to have to get A.J. Dillon the 6th or 7th. Are you going to be, so if A.J. Dillon's going to be your third running back, like, you're kind of leaving your starting just a little bit short. Yeah. But if you're really relying on that, if you have like maybe if you kind of grab someone you really like them, maybe that's where you go with A.J. Dillon. You kind of skip on that tight end. You get maybe a little, like a tight end later in the draft a little bit. But I do like that call of if you can get one, try to get them both.
Well, that's what, like, if you're somebody who gets running backs early, I would take 2 running backs. If you're taking 2 running backs early and it comes down 6th, 7th round, I would snag A.J. Dillon because he's a potential number 1 player that you could sneak in the late rounds. I know some people will reach and try to go 5th or something higher because they'll watch something and see. But to me, I think he's a great flex play to have weekly matchup base, especially with the defenses that he's going to see this year. I know Chicago got worse. Minnesota is not a good defensive team. And then the Lions, they were better last year, but they still struggled and gave up a lot of points. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, like, which one of these two ends up taking it. But I see it being more of a 50-50 split, and it's I'd kind of back away a little bit from what they're going to be this year. Like last year, it was all A.J. Dillon, or not A.J. Dillon. Like, Aaron Jones was going to be the dude who's going round 1, round 2. Now I think this year he's a round 3, round 4 guy, just because of the aspect that he is going to be 50-50 the whole time. So
Yep, I agree.
But yeah, and really with them, outside of that, it's just they didn't do a whole lot. You just got the big question mark's going to be what's that wide receiver room going to look like going forward. If you do take somebody, I would go. You got to go in on Christian Watson before you go on anybody else, just because they did spend a high value draft pick, and he's athletic and he's a big body. So
I agree. And if you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, like why not go get Christian Watson, keep on your bench, and if they really start connecting, that's another flex you got right there. A great flex with your other two wide receivers.
Yeah. Like again, we talk about Joseph Jefferson. He didn't come on the scene until about week 4 or 5 his rookie year, and it just was like an explosion from there, and just couldn't be stopped. So it's a wait process. You got to pick him up, hold him, and see what happens. Like he's not going to be stellar his first 2 games probably, but I get around week 4, week 5, once they figure out the speed and everything, I think it's going to change a lot for him. So he's definitely someone you want to look at late in the rounds, but. Outside that, let's go ahead and slide into then one of our favorite teams from last year, the Chicago Bears. Finally fired that idiot Matt Nagy. And they picked up Elof, I can't say his name right.
From the Colts. I can't say his name either.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
Matt Eberflus. Was kind of a surprising hire for them.
Wasn't a sexy pick. It was kind of like just trying to maybe get someone just to kind of get the ball rolling for him in the right direction.
He was the defensive coordinator from the Colts, like you said, looking to kind of redefine that defense a little bit, make it to what it was a couple years ago. But looking at this team, they didn't really, to me, I feel like they didn't add much to the team. You still got Justin Fields, who's going to be the number 1 this year. There's not going to be any of this playing a little bit sitting. His backups are Nathan Peterman and Trevor Siemian. So it's Justin Fields' sophomore season. Yep. What do you expect out of him?
I think it's going to be – he doesn't have the greatest field around him, but it's only like Justin Fields, he knows it's going to be him. There's no Andy Dalton. There's no Nick Foles. It's Justin Fields. Trevor Siemian, Nathan Peterman, they're not taking his job. They drafted him in the first round. They traded first-round picks for him. So he doesn't have to worry about that. I think he takes that leap kind of in the same field as Lance from 49ers. But I think Justin Fields might have a better year. He had a lot more playing time. Kind of really, him and Darnell Mooney kind of felt like got on a little bit of a click at the end.
Connection, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be good. But the thing is, after Darnell Mooney, like, you have Byron Pringle, Velus Jones Jr. It's going to be relying on David Montgomery and that defense a lot this year again. I don't expect much from the Bears, but I do expect Justin Fields to take that next step. Fantasy-wise, maybe draft him very late. Maybe you might be able to get him like after the draft just to kind of hold to see what he does, but I don't think he should be your number 1 quarterback for this year.
Okay, well then, you think he'll have a better year than Trey Lance, so you're saying not to take him now before him? Or, so like, personally for me, I think out of all second-year quarterbacks, we're going to see Trey Lance excel the most. I think even Trevor Lawrence makes a step forward. Justin Fields, it's just, I think to me it's the lack of weapons that they gave him on the outside. That's
kind of where, like, I think Justin Fields is going to be a better quarterback in the future, but for the now, I think Trey Lance might be better just because, especially with Debo, if he comes back, I think he's going to be set up for success a little bit better than Justin Fields in his first season with a new head coach.
Yeah, that's what I don't know. I like Justin Fields. I'm an Ohio State guy, but to me, it's just what he does well is he can run the ball. Like if we looked, he finished the season pretty decently. He had about 4 games, but he does get hurt a lot too as well. But that's also to the Bears. Like I remember he got sacked against his opening game. I think he got sacked 8 times, which is insane for anybody, let alone a rookie quarterback making his first game. It's going to be, if he can stay on the field, what's this offense going to look like now that Nagy's removed? Can't be any worse than what it was. I think you're going to see Justin Fields. I think he'll, like you said, I think he can potentially be one of the better ones from this class. I just think this year might not be that year. But we could see numbers like Jalen Hurts where maybe he's not ideally throwing the ball for a lot of yards, but he is utilizing his feet and athletic ability to score touchdowns and make plays that way to make up for those points. Jalen Hurts last year was the number 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFL for fantasy, but I wouldn't say he's that in the NFL. So I don't know. To me, Justin Fields is an interesting one. Like you said, late round. If you need another quarterback, you want to stow him away. Why not take him just to hold on to him?
Yeah, because like you said, the rushing touchdowns, like Hurts doesn't have David Montgomery behind him to run the ball. So they're going to rely on him. But Justin Fields I think he will run the ball more. Really, if he can get successful at that, I think that's going to really open up the passing game with Mooney and Pringle, because you do have fast guys and guys that have played in the league for a few years. And you have Cole Kmet that I don't know how I feel at tight end. He had his moments a couple of times. So seeing for another season, having a full offseason with Justin Fields with these guys, it should be pretty interesting. And if he starts showing that he can run the ball, especially into the end zone, that's going to be a nice quarterback to have in fantasy.
That's what, yeah. I like, to me, it's like we talked about. Like, when we look at this wide receiver core, Darnell Mooney is your guy who's leading the way. He's coming into his 3rd year. First year, he had splashes of performances where he showed out. Last year, like you said, it really came prevalent that was Justin Fields' favorite weapon. Like, Allen Robinson wasn't even a thought, and it was all Darnell Mooney. And he really showed to be the consistent number 1 for them last year. And then looking at this roster, I'm taking him, and that's probably the only receiver I'm going to touch. Like, they picked up Dante Pettis, who hasn't done anything. St. Brown from the Packers. It's just they didn't really pick up anybody in the draft. They have Velus Jones, who I don't know. He's just I don't know about that. It's going to be tough to see what he's going to look like. But I would just kind of rely on Darnell Mooney. Now, the question is, if we look at Darnell Mooney, is he a guy you reach for? Like, is he a DJ Moore type of guy last year in that 4th, 5th round that you could snag, or do you think you can wait even longer to pick him up?
I think you can wait just a little bit. If you really big on him, I think you go 5th, 6th at the lowest. I'm going to guess probably like around the 7th, 8th is where I would take him at. Especially if you do like Justin Fields and you're kind of like, I'm going to take him late, just maybe you never know. If you get Mooney, I think it's a good flex wide receiver to have. You got your other 2 wide receivers, and then you have a good flex play, because I think Justin Fields will rely on him like a lot, like we saw last year. It was having better games. Allen Robinson on the field doesn't matter. It was really Mooney, and I think that's where you should take him and hopefully have a good season and a next step for him.
Yeah. So, and then kind of tight end wise, which is another weapon, you talked about Cole Kmet, who had an average year last year, finished around top 20 tight end. I just think it's part of the process with who his coaching staff was last year. But to me, I think Cole Kmet could be top 3 tight end statistically this year with the Bears.
Really?
And that's solely because of Justin Fields needs guys. And who can you rely on? Is he going to rely on Byron Pringle, or is he going to rely on Cole Kmet last year, who we saw have targets a lot at the end of the year? And I think this year is a year where we see one of these random tight ends make that jump up to the top 5, top 4. I think he can easily be up there depending where that touchdown mark is going to be. Because, you're looking at top 20 tight end with 0 touchdowns last year. That's going to be utilized way different. And I know they have David Montgomery, who I think is a very good running back, and then Justin Fields' legs, but you don't want your franchise quarterback to take hits. So I think they're going to start utilizing play action a little bit more. And I think you're going to see Cole Kmet kind of pick up some touchdowns. And statistically wise, and I think playing wise, he could be a top 5 tight end this year. Yeah. Now you can get him real late, but if you're sold on, if you're not going to get the top 3 guys, let's wait. I think Cole Kmet's a guy you sit and wait on.
I agree with that. I don't know about top 5, but if you be honest, Bears were the worst offense last year. Yeah. And he had over 60 catches within the worst offense. Like you said, no touchdowns. You get a new coach in there, Justin Fields' 2nd year. He knows it's his, I feel like you can't get worse than 60
No.
catches.
Well,
Like,
that's what
it has to go up, so...
I think he's only going to get better. I think you're going to see red zone targets go up. So to me, like, it's just like you just have to know what that room is, who they have, and I just think Justin Fields, not Justin Herbert, knows that he has Mooney and Kmet coming back, top 2 targets from the year before. Let's keep feeding them the ball. They're people I can trust, and that's why I think he's easily going to kind of step in. I think his touchdown role and targets and potential for touchdowns are going to rise. Like, I mean, we saw, like you said, Bears' offense was atrocious. They weren't scoring a lot of points, so it's not like anybody was putting up a lot of points. So that's why I think he's one on my low radar, like tight end wise, one to keep an eye out for, like somebody who's available late that I would go get if I need a tight end.
Yeah, I think top 10 for sure. Just because with that 60 catches, he had 93 targets. Like, Darren Waller had 93 targets last year. So I think that's... I think
Darren Waller has Devontae Adams now.
Yeah, and I think there's some big names at the top, so it's going to be tough for him. If he stays healthy, there's always injuries, but if he stays healthy, I think he'd be up there. But there's some big names. So I like to go top 10, but if he's in the top 5, like, I'm not going to be surprised because I expect Justin Fields to have a couple, like, some good games, especially hopefully against some bad defenses. When you're playing against the Lions twice, the Vikings twice. For the Packers, besides Alexander, like, their passing offense isn't that great. And passing defense. So, and that's where Cole Kmet, he's athletic, and he's going to be able to beat those linebackers that are covering him. So I do like Cole Kmet, and top 5 is bad, and if I can definitely get him late, that's a steal.
To me, that's what it's going to be. And then you look at running back, I know David Montgomery, injury last year, 4 games out, and Khalil Herbert came in, huge off, came up, picked up pieces where he left off. But once Montgomery came back, it was his backfield again. Continued to see all rushes. This year, it's just Montgomery to me is a easily top 10, 15 running back in the league, or he'll be a top 15, if not sneak into the top 10 this year if he can stay healthy. So it's just, to me, it's Montgomery's going to be one, but I think you can sit and wait too solely because of where is this offense going to go? What are they going to look like after this year?
Yeah. If you go Montgomery, I think that's when you draft Herbert at late, because Montgomery. But I don't expect Herbert to do really much when Montgomery's available. Question for you though: who would you take first, Jones or Montgomery?
I'd take Montgomery.
Because it's interesting because I agree with you. But Aaron Jones is going in the early 3rd, and Montgomery's going the late 4th.
See, I just think that they're going... It's a lot of what have we seen Jones do 2 years ago. I think it's still playing a huge role. I just think that Dillon and Jones are going to be a big 50-50, 60-40. It's not going to be... I don't think it's enough where Jones can do enough to take over that role. I think Montgomery, it's his backfield. They're going to give him the ball. When he has the ball, he can do certain things. So I think, to me, that's why I'm taking Montgomery before him. I think he's just a better back overall.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Jones hype is just with Devontae Adams leaving. And so all those targets, everything, it's getting spread out, and everyone just like, Aaron Jones has been there. He's their bet, like, he's been there for a while, so he must go to him. And Aaron Jones has had those huge games. He had, the 4 or 5 touchdown game last year.
Yeah, that's he had 2 or 3. I think he had 2 games where he had 4 touchdowns in them, and that takes over everything. Like, if you 7 touchdowns is a lot for a running back anymore, and if you get that in 2 games, your numbers are going to be skewed that way. So I think that's a big reason why he was still where he was, but I just don't see that happening this year.
I think it's just an overreaction. I bet that kind of evens out a little bit, but also just depends on your stance on A.J. Dillon. If you don't think he's going to be much, then you go with Aaron Jones for sure, but then if you like A.J. Dillon, Montgomery doesn't have competition. Khalil Herbert will get his touches just a little bit.
Maybe,
Compared to the rest of the NFL, Montgomery's going to have more touches, and be on the field a lot more than more running back. So I think you go with that no of like comfortability that he's going to, if he's not injured, he's getting the ball.
Yeah, that's what to me. It's just he really worked. I don't know. It's just I think Montgomery is a better back, and he's in a better situation to where he doesn't have somebody like Dillon, like you said, breathing down his throat. So I just think it's going to be Montgomery's first in my book over A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, both of them. So the Bears-wise, they did lose two key pieces on defense. Just to talk, like, before we move on, Khalil Mack and the inside guy, Campbell. He killed Dalvin Cook on the inside.
Oh, that's what's his name? Trying to think of his name.
Yeah, I'll come back to it. It'll come back to me again. I forgot his name. He's a big boy. So, I mean, those two, Akeem Hicks.
Yeah, there it is, yep.
He was a big role for that defense. Both of them were. Which helps out our argument for, I think, this next guy. With the Detroit Lions, you're looking at DeAndre Swift, who kind of came onto the scene last year. Everybody is kind of late third, fourth round picks last year. You weren't sure kind of with Jamal Williams going over there what that was going to look like. But he ended up finishing 15th in PPR, a top 25 running back in standard leagues, while missing about 5-6 games. I think DeAndre Swift is one of the more talented backs. I think the Lions just have to buy into the fact that he needs to have the ball in his hands more times than not, and he brings a great receiving aspect out of the backfield, which is where a lot of his numbers came from last year. But to me, I think he's only 23, going to be probably 24 soon. I think he's one that is going to take a big step going into year 3 this year for him, or year 2, year 3.
Yeah, year 3.
I just don't see, like, in the division they play in, there's not much there, and I think the Lions' offensive scheme is built on running the football, quick passes, get it out of Jared Goff's hands. Now the question is he a top 2 round back in your opinion, or do you think you wait again?
For Swift?
Yeah.
I'd go for Swift. I've read some things back and forth that actually there's some people that aren't high on Swift. They think
Really?
Jamal Williams won't, or Jamal Williams will get a lot more touches than he did last year. He was hurt, but I think if DeAndre Swift can stay healthy, like he missed 5 games and he was 4th in running backs in receptions and 4th in targets. Like he's getting the ball. Their offense has improved. St. Brown has came onto the kind of the spotlight. DJ Chark, Jameson Williams. That just opens it up for DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
That more one-on-one matchups, less people in the box. You got to spread it out a little bit. Don't like Jared Goff though. That's the only tough part about it. But I think DeAndre Swift can take a good step this year. I'd take him in the first round, late first round, but or if I can get him in the early second. But I'm high on DeAndre Swift this year. I wasn't last year. I thought it was going to be more 50-50, but I switched that pretty fast, and I'm on the DeAndre Swift train.
That's what. Yeah, to me, DeAndre Swift is he'll be a top 10 back this year. I think he's one you can take, and especially PPR. If he's going to get the same workload that he got throwing the or receiving the football, he's one you got to go up and get and try to take advantage of. I think he's a late first, early second kind of guy this year. I like Jamal Williams, but I just don't think, if you look at the two, you got to give the ball.
Jamal Williams, sorry. Different Williams.
Did you say Jason Williams?
I said Jameson Williams.
Oh, yeah, he's a different guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, to me, I just think Jamal Williams is good. He's just not going to be, he's not as talented and dynamic as what DeAndre Swift is. He's a great backup running back. You could see 60-40 split there. I don't know. I would rather see DeAndre get 70% of that workload and then Jamal get maybe 30% just the rest, third down back type stuff. But I'll be interested to see what they do with that. And like you said, Jared Goff is just the question mark. Not very good. Won't be very good. But like you said, he found a spark last year with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who came out of USC, was real quiet to start the year, and then at the end of the year just blew up. His last 5 or 6 games, he didn't have below double digits in fantasy points. And for most of them, they weren't below 20 points. So he was going off. He was scoring touchdowns. His targets were on everything in double digits. His receiving, he was only missing 3 to 4 balls, maybe at max. Like, he's getting that. He's getting the looks. And I don't see why that would go away. I know they have Jameson Williams this year. They went and traded up, which I think was a great draft trade for them. I think Jameson Williams has potential to be, I think it's between him and Olave kind of to be the top receivers out of this class, although I do like a bunch of other ones from this group. I just think Jameson, his playmaking ability will counterpart with kind of what Amon-Ra St. Brown can do. I think St. Brown runs better routes and is more built for like short routes and making himself open, where I think Jameson will just run past you, and I think you need that in a room like that. So I'll be interested to see like how late do you think Amon-Ra St. Brown goes because of Jared Goff as his quarterback?
I think it's weird because I think he goes like in the 7th, 8th round probably is my guess. I think there's a point of people where they're kind of like, oh, St. Brown had that big season.
Yep.
But everyone, like anyone that's watching fantasy football is like, oh, don't overreact to St. Brown. Like at the end of the season, don't do that. But also, like Jameson Williams won't be ready for the camp, supposedly. Like that's what they're kind of reporting. No. So he's going to have a slow start to the season. And so you kind of got a kind of mix of that. Like, I'm not a big G.J. Chark fan. I know he was on the Jaguars. I know he had
injury problems.
Lawrence, he had injury problems. I'm just not super into him. I think St. Brown is still going to be that good wide receiver. Shouldn't be your number one. If he's your number 2, probably should have 2 good running backs to go with him. Or if he's your second wide receiver, you probably need a good wide receiver and 2 good running backs. But I like St. Brown. I think it's going to be interesting to see when Williams comes back, but I'd say go 7th, 8th round with him.
See, so this is where I'm going to counter-argue. I think with the acquisition, Jameson, I like him on. I know you can't overreact or whatever. I'm not saying go get him early, but I think you kind of have to reach for him a little bit because of the fact that the Browns are not the Browns. The Lions were in a lot of games last year. They weren't getting blown out by a lot, and if they were, they're throwing the ball a lot. Jared Goff was throwing the ball. He had quite a few games where he had 45 attempts or 43 attempts. Who are they going to have to throw the ball to? The best option they have is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think their connection's only going to get stronger while Jameson Williams heals from his ACL. But I'll be interested to see when Jameson comes back because he did tear it in January. So right around that's 8-9 months of rehab. He could fully be back by the time the NFL starts. So it'll be interesting to see what that room's going to look like. I think they're both going to balance each other equally. But where you're saying 7th, 8th for Amon-Ra, I'm thinking 5th, 6th for him because of what he can do. He kind of reminds me of like the Steelers. Man, I had him. Deontay Johnson. That's who he reminds me of. Like a guy who is consistently on the field, gets the looks, is talented enough to be a 1, but just has a bad quarterback. Like, that's kind of how I view him. And Deontay was going 5'6" last year in a lot of drafts, mock drafts, and his average draft position and everything. I think that's where Amon can be going, especially because, like I said, those last 6 games, people are going to reach. So if you want him and you think he's going to produce, like I think he'll produce solid numbers again, I think you have to reach. It just also too depends what's Jameson going to be like.
Yeah, I think the 7th, 8th for me just comes off Jared Goff. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't like them. I do like the Lions. I think they have a good future, but there's a reason why they didn't take a quarterback this year.
Yeah.
Is because I think they're waiting for one next year, which means
Well, yeah.
I think they're not going to be as good. But at the same time, that means they're going to be down a lot, so you got to throw the ball a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's
so
what
that
like.
that might happen. So you know what's interesting? Who would you take first, Allen Robinson or Ahmad St. Brown?
I'm taking him on Ross St. Brown.
See, I agree with that, but Allen Robinson's going a full round before him.
I think that's because of who Robinson's
in
with.
place for. Yeah, I agree.
And the potential of him being like an Odell last year.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee if Odell comes back, he will be stupidly high on where to pick him up at. Like, it's just the overhyped, it's a name brand thing. Like, Amon-Ra, he plays for Detroit. Are you really going to want to go get a guy who plays for Detroit? Have we ever wanted somebody from Detroit since Calvin Johnson? No, not really. So to me, it's like this team's going up. You got them. Jameson Williams, I think you pick him up late, 10, 11 round, 9, 10, 11 round.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to reach for him because it is what it is. Like, but to me, it's like I think you're fully capable of sitting till 9, 10, or 11, taking him there. Even if he's not going to start the season, like 2 games, 3 games, I feel like that's all he's going to miss at most. So, question is, I know they have like DJ Chark here. You don't like him. I'm not a huge fan of him just because of injury prone. He hasn't been healthy. He had that one really solid year, but since then it's kind of been a struggle for him. And I know he's on the Jags, like you said. I don't see him with Jared Goff doing anything more. Like, he's an absolute 12-man league if you need a low flex, and he's one of the last on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's where I think he's at.
Yeah, I agree with that. And St. Brown gets hurt, and Jameson Williams isn't back, or even he is.
Yeah.
I think that you might be able to find a good spot in there because 2 years ago he did have a good season. Really kind of came onto the surface. So you never know just because this Lions team, anything can happen. Like no one's projecting St. Brown, and then at the end just like caught fire. So
yeah,
maybe just change the scenery. Like is what he needed. So I don't completely throw him to the side, but I think there are a lot better wide receivers just in this division than before. I would take DJ Chark.
I agree. Then we look here, last one. We have T.J. Hawkinson coming out of Iowa, 4th year this year in the league. Kind of has been disappointing, I feel like. With Stafford, we saw big numbers, high potential. Everybody, I loved Hawkinson with Stafford. Like his 2nd year there, finished top 5 wide receiver, tight end in PPR, and I just think he's a guy that Detroit's going to have to learn to get the ball to. Super disappointing year for him last year. Finished top 15. I expect that to be higher. Now, how much higher? I don't know. He did get hurt, but what are you thinking his projections are this year?
So I'm kind of out on Hawkinson. It's just I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's the injury. I don't know if it's Jared Goff. I'm more excited about these other wide receivers on this team. I know a lot of people that his size and if he's healthy, what he can do in that red zone for this team to really open it up. He's going in the middle of the 6th round, and I can't see myself drafting that kind of tight end with so many question marks around him. I think someone, like, if this team is thinking that they're not going to be that good, I feel like someone on this team just can't have a good season. And I think it's going to be T.J. Hawkinson. Maybe with Stafford still here, you get him a different quarterback that can really use the tight end. I turn my kind of what I feel about him around. But right now this year, I'm just not into Hawkinson. He'll probably be top 15 tight end just because how sometimes the tight end position gets pretty thin.
Yeah.
But I like Cole Kmet, to be honest with you, over T.J. Hawkinson. That's how I feel about that.
Well, that's what, to me, I feel like a lot of people are kind of thinking the same way you are with T.J. Hawkinson. But I think he can slide in this year, be top 10. If he's healthy last year, he easily finishes top 10. I know, like, to me, it does matter who the quarterback is. It does play a factor in that. But I think Jared Goff and the Lions are going to have to utilize their weapons. Like, teams are going to have to choose with the Lions. If Jameson Williams steps up and is the real deal like everybody thinks he's going to be, and Amon comes on, does the same things he did last year, it's going to have to be, who do we want to beat us? Like, do we want the wide receivers to try to beat us over the top, or do we want to give up shorter dink-and-dunk passes to T.J. Hawkinson? And like I said, I just think personally, I think he's going to finish top 10. I like T.J. Hawkinson, but I would also sit and wait. Like, I don't need tight ends to me. They're come and go. Like, unless you get the Kelseys, the Andrews, to me it's just they're all the same. Like I said, I actually like Kmet more than Hawkinson this year, but I also like Hawkinson over a lot of other tight end options that are in the NFL. So I don't know. He's a confusing one. What he's shown he can do is good, but like you said, it is his 5th year, so he's coming off 4 contract discussion, so that could be a motivational factor that plays into it as well. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I just think he's one that you, like you said, 6th round is. I think you can wait a little bit. Yeah, he slipped a lot in our draft last year, and I think he could. You're probably somebody you can wait on if unless all the tight ends are going for some reason, then I guess you could take him. But even then, I could sit and wait for him. So
yeah, it's weird about the tight end position. You can be out on someone, but also be like, yeah, he'll be top 10. He'll be like 9 or 10, and it's just like that's just weird about tight ends because if T.J. Hawkinson's healthy. He's on the field like 98% of the time.
Yeah, he's always on the field.
That's someone that you want just because maybe he won't score a touchdown, but he'll get 6 catches, and that's going to outscore like 98% of the other tight ends that you could draft from. So it's a weird position, and I'm not big on Hawkinson, but you're going to have to start him every game unless he's injured.
Yeah, that's what I don't know. It's going to be super interesting to see what it's going to look like. With him, I like to me, it's just I'll take him late. I think he's gonna finish top 10. He might even sneak in to be higher, depending on how they utilize him. But it's to me, I think 5-6 is way too high. You gotta wait and just let him drop to you until you absolutely need one. So, I mean, outside that, the Lions had a very good draft. I think this is my spoiler. I think they're gonna have. I'm gonna take their over on wins this year. I think they'll outperform what people think they're gonna do. Even with Jared Goff, like they won, was it 2 or 3 games last year?
I think it was 3.
3, like you can easily argue they should have beat the Ravens. Justin Tucker hit that 68-yard field goal or something crazy.
Yep.
So to me, it's just that's my one thing. I'm gonna be pretty high on the Lions this year, just because not to win a whole lot, but I think they'll be a lot more competitive and win a lot more games. Kind of like. We were thinking the Panthers were going to be last year. So, that is it for the Lions. Was there any other... I think that was pretty much it for them. They made some good trades up for everybody, but Jameson Williams was the big one for them.
Their over-under wins is 6.5.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
Yeah,
their schedule's not hard, so it'll be interesting to see.
I thought they were going to be like 4 or 5, and I was going to agree with you, but it's like 7 and 10. Like, they have to go 7 and 10 to get that over.
It's possible. But let's go ahead and slide into our last team then. We have the Minnesota Vikings. Fired Mike Zimmer in the offseason. They hired Kevin O'Connell, Rams offense coordinator from last year. Same news with them. Nothing really happened out of their camp. You got Kirk Cousins coming back. I don't know. We were high then low on Kirk last year. He finished just out top 10. He's just Kirk. You're going to get what you want.
He started off really good.
Oh, yeah. Great.
And then he just kind of, really fell apart at the end. I feel like, I don't know, the Vikings, they're a very streaky team. They go and they'll win 4 in a row, but then they lose 4 in a row. And it's very frustrating because they have a really good offense. It's that
I know.
defensive struggles. And give them credit, like in the draft, they win a lot, like offensive line, defense. Like they
Defense,
really.
yeah, they went what they needed to do. Like
Mhm.
they pushed it out. So, to me, that's like quarterback wise, Kirk's gonna be Kirk. You take him, and you know the risk. If you take him solely because he's got one man. That's Jetta, Justin Jefferson. He's easily, to me, Devontae Adams to me is like the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think Stephon Diggs' route running abilities up there, but I think Justin Jefferson, you can argue, is second best wide receiver in the NFL. I think Devontae takes number one, but I think Justin Jefferson could easily be the second best person
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were just like, oh, Justin Jefferson, he's not going to be able to repeat what he did his rookie year. Maybe he got a little lucky and will go back down. Prove that he still can be dominant when they know, like, he's getting the ball. Like, Kirk Cousins. Go for it.
Go.
I was just saying, like, Kirk Cousins is streaky, but, like, Justin Jefferson has his games. Like, even when they have when they have a bad offensive day, like, Justin Jefferson still has 7-8 catches for, like, he still has 80, 90 yards, and it's not what you expect from Justin Jefferson when he's a top 5 wide receiver, but he's still getting you points every single, like, just the consistency now. Well, besides injury, like, Justin Jefferson's going to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, he's going to get his. So, here's my thought. Do you think minus Cooper Kupp, so I forgot he was even an option, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams is number 2 wide receiver off the board this year. Who do you take number 2 off the board?
Personally,
Cooper Kupp's going to go first, probably.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp will go first. I personally would go Justin Jefferson. I think people would go more Devontae Adams because of what he's done. Like, I'm still questionable with Derek Carr. Like, I know I get the whole they're in college and Derek Carr has those great games where he can hit everybody. But then he has those games where he just acts like he can't play quarterback. And I know, like, Devontae Adams now has, like, actual, like, some talent around him. Like, he has Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller to kind of take the pressure off him a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it's still, like, it comes to, like, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, they didn't have to look at each other and knew exactly what they wanted to do, where the ball was going. Is that going to be the same, like, Devontae Adams, Derek Carr played in college together, 5 years ago?
That's
like,
right.
It's a different league.
You can say whatever you want about Derek Carr is not Aaron Rodgers. Will never be Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Carr to me is just like another dude throwing the football. Where I think, and that's going to affect, like you said, Devontae Adams. To me, I take Justin Jefferson number 2. He's just, I don't know. Like you said, he has those huge games where he just consistently performs when you need him to. Like, he's they're big ball guy. He goes up and gets it. He just creates separation. He's one of the best since Randy Moss, like, running down the field, creating separation. So, I love Justin Jefferson. I think he's second best behind Cooper Kupp. Like, it's arguably to me that I think he's the second one that you need to take off the board. I think he goes Cooper Kupp followed by Justin Jefferson in the first round. I think he needs to go higher than that. So, yeah.
Yeah,
and then you got, like, Adam Thielen. And
I think Adam Thielen's good in the red zone. Like, he'll catch, if you throw him the ball, he'll catch it. He's just getting older, and everyone thought, like, oh, Adam Thielen had a lot of touchdowns the year before. He's going to do that again. That kind of went downhill. Justin Jefferson still stayed consistent. I just think, like this offense didn't change much from last year. You still got Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, KG Osborne, Irv Smith Jr. Like, he'll be back. Like, you didn't go and draft a rookie wide receiver. You didn't go trade for someone. Like, you got your offensive line, your defense. So, I think why Justin Jefferson wouldn't do what he did last year.
Yeah, that's what I just think. Like, Thielen is the only other option, I think, outside of Dalvin Cook that's going to take touchdowns away. Mm-hmm. Thielen just in the red zone he's hard to stop. 13 games, he had 10 touchdowns last year. Like, he's going to be a flex play week in and week out because teams have to put so much pressure now on Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen's not the number one. Justin Jefferson's number 1. So it'll be interesting for me. It's going to be. I just think Adam Thielen is going to be a good flex play and a guy you take later in the draft. Like, he's going to drop lower. He's not going to be fifth round this year. He's going to be more 7th, 8th, 9th round because he is a flex play. And we know Justin Jefferson's the main guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it looks like about 8th round for Thielen, and I think that's pretty consistent of what he's expected to do. Less touchdowns this year, but from every week that Adam Thielen might be scoring a touchdown just because of how he can just turn his body and just Kirk Cousins can throw it right there and he'll make that catch. Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy, but I think it's just going to be a better year offensively. They could bring in an offensive-minded coach, and I think he has weapons to play with, and I think he's going to do a lot what he did the Rams last year, and now he even has a running game. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and that's what the last guy, like wide receiver-wise, KJ Osborne, he had big games last year, up and down. He's always going to be that number 3 that gets the love whenever you're playing teams that focus on Thielen and Jefferson. So to me, it's going to be KJ Osborne. If you're in a really like a 12-team deep league, he's a guy you take at the very end of the draft to throw in as a flex play every once in a while, matchup base. That's what he's going to be for me. So he has potential to be good, and if Thielen gets hurt again or Jefferson gets hurt, Osborne is very capable of stepping up and being a number 2 on that team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then we slide in here, running back wise, been very consistent. Dalvin Cook, just injury prone, has been a big thing for him the last couple years. But we've seen what he can do. Last year, down year, only had about 6 touchdowns in the year. How do you kind of view Dalvin Cook this year going into year 6? Do you see him bouncing back, or do you kind of back off from him thinking he's not going to be able to do what he did? Because he went from 16 touchdowns the year before to 6 last year.
Yeah, and I think some had to do with injury, and like we said with Thielen, for some reason when they're getting the red zone, they're throwing the ball, and Thielen was. And actually, if I remember correctly, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I feel like the Vikings were not a very good red zone team. I feel like they're close and they just never score. I believe he has a bounce back here. Still almost had 1,200 yards. They just couldn't get in the end zone. If he stays healthy,
4 games, Yeah,
if he stays healthy, I think he gets in the end zone more this year. I think he'll have that bounce back year. But the question for you is, if he does stay healthy, Madison has proven he's not Dalvin Cook, but he can still be a reliable running back that you can play. Do you think that starts to kind of more where you might see Madison a little bit more playing even with Dalvin Cook not injured?
I don't think so because of the amount of money that Dalvin Cook's getting, and they pay him to run the football. And I like Alexander Madison. I think what he does when he's very capable of being the number 1 at other teams. I just think there's a huge difference. Like, Dalvin Cook does everything. He can catch, he can run, and it's different when he runs the ball compared to when Madison runs the ball. I think Madison's very good, but I just think Minnesota's going to work Dalvin until Dalvin can't do anymore. It might change, though, with O'Connell coming in and trying to be more of a split backfield and get Alexander Madison involved more in the passing game. That could be something we see, but I just think Dalvin's good at everything. The screen game with him, he runs very well. He's very good at catching the ball out of the backfield. It's just going to be hard to pass that up, but it could be a question. I think you always have to handcuff Dalvin. I think if you're drafting Dalvin, you're drafting Madison just because you've seen what you can do.
I agree.
With Dalvin, though, where's he at on your top 5? Running backs above him this year. It's hard because you got Taylor coming off a huge year last year. CMC being hurt, but you still take him because of what we've seen him do. Does Najee sneak past Dalvin? What running backs? Eckler. What running backs are you taking over Dalvin? Or what are you taking? Derrick Henry too, obviously.
I like Dalvin Cook. I like him probably looking at this list, probably like 6 or 7. I'd like you got Taylor. I'd still take McCaffrey. I'd take Derrick Henry. I'd still take Eckler. And then I believe you take Najee Harris over him, and I even like Joe Mixon over Dalvin Cook. I think
Really?
just the experience, like not the experience, but the just taking younger guys. Dalvin Cook going to the 6th year for running backs. That's actually like not a lot of running backs get to do that and play start 6 years in the NFL. So I believe Dalvin Cook's still going to have a good year, but just of expectations and what to expect from all the other guys. Like touchdown wise, I just like those six guys more. And with Kamara, I don't know what's going to happen to him. Might even take I don't know how to feel. I feel like Cook and Swift are kind of like on the same like level with me of where I take them.
So you're taking Joe Mixon in the first round over
No,
Swift
I
and
don't.
Cook?
I don't take Joe Mixon in the first round. I just take him before Cook.
Okay. Interesting to think about.
Yep.
I don't agree with that, but
I know you don't like Joe Mixon at all, but
I don't mind Joe Mixon. I just disagree with that take right there. It is, but yeah. So I don't know. To me, it's just this group is. It's gonna be interesting to see like what everybody's gonna look like. Najee with his new quarterback and everything. Nick Chubb. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, but yeah. I just think Dalvin Cook is his backfield. The Vikings aren't going to be a whole lot different this year.
mm-hmm.
Like, their defense probably got a little better, but I just think it did help, though. The Bears' defense got weakened. Green Bay got better by draft.
Mm-hmm.
And then Detroit's okay. They're not great. So, but they also got better on the draft. So, it'll be interesting to see kind of what they're going to look like, and that plays a big factor in who Dalvin Cook is. Looking at tight end, anything with Irv Smith Jr., you just saying you're done with Irv Smith?
Yeah, like he was hurt last year, gone like, I don't know. Don't really have much on him. Not going to draft him, not going to pick him up unless something changes on that team where they start going to him more.
I don't think you touch anybody outside of Cook and Thielen and Jefferson.
Yep.
I think those two are the main guys, and that's pretty much it from there. But yeah, that is the NFC North rundown. Are there any surprises you think coming out of the NFC North, or like players that you think are going to be like, this is the one guy that we didn't mention?
No one that we mentioned, but like I said, honestly, this is my guess. I think Justin Jefferson is going to end up being wide receiver number 1 this year. I think Cooper Kupp's going to have a great year. He's going to do what he does, but it's just an outlier season. I think Justin Jefferson's going to have a better year than Cooper Kupp.
All right, that'll be it. He easily could. It was just what Cooper Kupp did last year is
it was insane, and like it's going to be so hard. And I won't be surprised if he does it again. But I just think how hard that's going to be. That's why I pick like Justin Jefferson just going to have a better year.
Well, that's what. Yeah, like he had 145 receptions, almost 2,000 receiving.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is just like Jefferson. Like I don't know, Jefferson was good. Like I think he's only going to get better too. Like he's learning. His touchdowns are going to go up too. I think. Like there was a lot of. I remember there's quite a few games where Jefferson's getting tackled at the 1 instead of scoring on like 78-yard touchdown passes that were going there, and then he just would get tackled. So
and then the ball goes to Thielen for the touchdown. Yep. That's the frustrating part.
It wasn't going to him. So it's always tough to see, but yeah, I could see Justin Jefferson taking that leap to be there. Outside of that, I don't know. NFC North, I think, is going to be really bad.
Yeah. What running back? The 4 running backs on these teams. Who's going to have the best year? You think?
I think it goes. Who? This is tough. I like just because I'm not sure totally what they're going to do in Detroit. I think Dalvin has a big bounce back year. Interchangeable. What between him and Swift? I think. If Swift becomes that number 1 guy, you could see him taking a big leap. I also like Montgomery. I think the last 2 will be Jones and
Dylan.
like my first 3, I think you could argue they'll have the best year, just because they're going to be the number one guys and they're going to get their work.
Yeah, and they're going to be on the field a lot. Like
Yeah, I just don't think Jones and Dillon are going to be consistent enough to argue that they're going to be the best in the division.
Yep, I agree with that list 100%. Like Swift and Cook are like side by side with me, and then Montgomery. Like I feel like Montgomery, he does catch the ball on the field, but I feel like he's not Cook and Swift like of catching the ball. So then I think that it depends on league you are, but like all those three are going to be on the field a lot. I feel like if they don't get injured.
Yeah. We need a full year of Montgomery healthy to see what he can do. But I think he's good enough to where he can do things with this ball and everything. Like, he's talented enough to do that. He finished with 849 rushing yards, and that's missing, I don't know, how many games did he miss last year? Quite a few. 4 or 5. So I just think anything's possible with Montgomery going forward with them and that whole team. But it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. But, yeah, like we said, my big thing is I think Cole Kmet's going to be top 5 tight end. That's just my big prediction there for him and everybody else. But that is it for the NFC North. We will go ahead and start with the NFC South next week in our next episode. So kind of review that again and go over all that. But other than that, make sure you check us out on everything. Subscribe, hit the notification button so you guys can keep up with whenever we post and everything. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Deuces.
See ya.